Welcome everybody to today's very special event, the opening of the Tribute Museum and the 82nd anniversary of the arrival of the Dunera boys, held in this significant location. My role today is to get us lunch on time and point out where the toilets are. To find the toilets, proceed down the passage to the end and take the lift up to the next floor. This event is a joint function between the Dunera Association and Paul Signorelli, owner of Daltone House Receptions. Paul has invited the Dunera Association here at no cost, including lunch. Paul, could you stand up? Thank you. And Ron, President of the Dunera Association, stand up also. Thank you, Ron. You will hear from these two gents later. We start the day with the unveiling of a plaque by which to remember today, followed by a welcome from both Ron and Paul. Lunch will then be served, after which a model of the HMT Dunera will be unveiled. Then dessert, followed by our guest speaker, Louise Animat. Questions for Louise and general Dunera questions. Light afternoon tea when you can wander and socialise. Then closing speeches. You're welcome to stay until 4:30 p.m. Enough talk from me. I invite Ron to the microphone. Ron?
On behalf of the Dunera Association, I welcome you to this Tribute Museum on Jones Bay Wharf and this historically significant event on the occasion of the 82nd anniversary of the arrival of the Dunera boys right here. I'd like to mention some guests, honoured guests who have come to this very special occasion. In no particular order: Paul Signorelli, Chief Executive Officer of Daltone House; Pauline Lyle-Smith from the UK; Muriel Barber, widow of Dunera boy Herbert Barber; Leah James, widow of Dunera boy Henry James; Carol Bunyan, honorary archivist and researcher; Councillor Davis, representing the City of Sydney; Dana Fletcher, Assistant Director, Australian National Maritime Museum; Matt Lee, Manager VIP Relations, Australian National Maritime Museum; the Lippmann family; Rebecca Silk, past President of the Dunera Association; Peter Felder, immediate past President of Dunera Association; Tom Wolfe, creator of the model of the HMT Dunera; Conrad Queet, Emeritus Professor, Sydney University; and apologies from Dr. Seamus Spark, our Vice President. This is an emotional occasion for me, and I'm sure for many of you, who are directly or indirectly connected to the events of the 6th of September 1940. When I visited Jones Bay Wharf for the first time in 2019, I was overcome with the realisation that my father Martin disembarked HMT Dunera, not having a clue as to what was to become of him in this strange land. I'm sure this feeling is replicated by many of you. We are here because we wish to honour the lives and memories of our loved ones who made significant contributions to this country and other countries following their release from internment. However, we would not be here in this Tribute Museum if it wasn't for the tireless efforts of Paul Signorelli OAM, Executive Chairman at Daltone House, and the previous work by Dunera boy Henry Lippmann. Following our initial contact some years ago, Paul made it his business to establish this facility to honour not only Dunera boys but all immigrants who disembarked at Jones Bay Wharf. In so doing, Paul also honoured his parents who migrated to Australia and disembarked here, subsequently establishing a significant business, that of Daltone House. Most generously, Paul was more than happy to allow significant space in this room for Dunera artefacts and displays. We also thank him for his generosity in co-hosting this function. I do wish to acknowledge the late Henry Lippmann, founding president of Dunera Association, then known as the Hay to Tura Association, and foundation editor of Dunera News. He was virtually responsible for the establishment of a tribute room on this dock and the inclusion of the Dunera story on the history boards displayed adjacent to the nearby Australian Maritime Museum. I hope you will enjoy this occasion, which will include the unveiling of the plaque opening this museum, lunch, afternoon tea, our guest speaker followed by discussion, questions, and the unveiling of the model of HMT Dunera by its creator, Tom Wolfe. Enjoy. We come to the main purpose of this afternoon, which is the unveiling of the plaque, which shows the establishment of this tribute museum. This is a temporary plaque. We will have a permanent plaque. A brass plaque will be out the front of the museum at some stage down the track. So, Burn Brent is the last surviving Dunera boy in Australia. He is 99 not out. He is turning 100 in December. And we are very fortunate that although he couldn't be here today physically, he will be unveiling this plaque virtually. We've set up a link, but in addition to that, we are really honoured to have Muriel Barber and Leah James here in physical form to unveil this plaque. I would ask those lovely ladies to come forward. Well, they can just stand. Yeah. Yeah.
You can stand here, please. Thank you. How are you? Good. Good. Lovely. You stand over here. She's coming. We've got 85 years to wait.
Okay, we're ready for the video link.
Wait for the link. There he is.
Hello. Good afternoon, friends. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Well, here I understand I'm the last surviving Dunera boy in Australia. And if you ask me, I'm very happy that chance brought me to Australia. I'm very happy that I was interned the time I was, and by pure chance happened to board the Dunera, which was the only ship that arrived in Australia, as you well know. I had no vision of Australia to live. When we arrived in Australia, I had no desire to live here, to stay here. All I wanted to do was to return to Britain, to resume my life in London where I lived. However, it so happened that I could not return because Pearl Harbor diverted the ship on which I was supposed to return to Britain to Malaya to take munitions to our division, to the 5th Division in Malaya, because you remember Japan, it was past Pearl Harbor. So it was pure chance that I stayed in Australia, and I have not regretted it. I don't know whether your fathers agree with me that having been interned when I was, and having been sent to Australia when I was the best thing that could have happened to me under the circumstances. Had I remained in Britain, I would have joined the army, and I give myself only a 50-50% chance of having survived the war. And what was I going to do after the war? I was working in the factory, and perhaps I would have risen to become foreman in the factory in which I worked. Here in Australia, I had plenty of time and occasion to upgrade my education, to qualify for university study, and that would have not have been possible in Britain. So, all in all, I'm one, and I don't know whether your parents and whether your fathers agree with me, I'm one who is happy to have spent his life in Australia rather than in Britain.
Bern, we'll get you to say that you are unveiling the plaque for the new Tribute Museum.
Well, I'm so I'm happy for you to unveil the plaque to open the new museum.
And the lady... And Mr. Paul Signorelli, I would like you please to read the plaque.
Oh, yes, okay.
Just come over here.
Okay, welcome everybody. So we have here a plaque which will be reproduced in bronze, and it'll be situated just outside the Tribute Museum. And the plaque reads, "Unveiled on the 28th of August 2022. This plaque commemorates the arrival on this wharf, be careful, sorry, on the 82nd anniversary of the arrival of the HMT Dunera, carrying over 2,000 Dunera boys. This plaque also represents new migrants, military arrivals and departure. The Tribute Museum was opened today, and this plaque, unveiled by Dunera boy Bernie Brent, Muriel Barber, wife of Dunera boy Herbert Barber, and Lee James, wife of Dunera boy Henry James. Congratulations, everybody. Round of applause.
Thank you, ladies. You may return to your seats.
I'd like to hand the microphone over to Paul, who, I don't know what Paul's going to say, so here he is. I don't know if Paul does either.
You can stay here, Peter. Just stay there. Okay, I'll use this one, I think. Hello, testing 1, 2. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to this lovely occasion. An historic occasion, by the way. So my family goes back to 1954 when my late father, Biagio, arrived in this wharf from Sicily. So Sicily was a small little island off the coast of Italy, the mainland. And my father, much like the Dunera boys, came to a foreign land, didn't know what to do here. He arrived on this very wharf. And you can imagine all the tears of happiness, but also sadness, arriving to a new country, not knowing what to expect. So some 40 years later, Biagio bought this pier, or part of the pier. So we're very honoured that the family continues its heritage here. I first came to Jones Bay Wharf in 1998, and back then there was a demolition order on this pier. It was dilapidated, and the then government said, well, let's just demolish it and bring it back to waterways. So, but there was a community of some local business people, including myself, that wanted to make this pier to be restored. And together with Multiplex and Toga, we lobbied the government and we restored this pier and spent about $150 million to restore this pier to what it is today. So, yeah, round of applause to that. Yeah. So following that, the pier was then developed into multiple suites. As you can see today, it houses a lot of offices, including a function centre. But when the the museum was established in 2002. It was a very small part of the museum was behind us there. So it was a very, a little tribute. It was actually called the Heritage Room. They showcased the history of this pier. And then we realised that there was a ship named Dunera, HMT, and together we said, how about we have a little tribute to this little boat that arrived, not little, 2,500 people. So for about 15 years, it remained a very small place. And then we bought this where we are today, and we invested over $3 million. And I dedicated this space as a tribute museum to the Dunera. And I said to my family, in my will, this will continue to be a tribute to all migrants, including Dunera and other migrants on this pier. So, thank you. I was honoured to meet Peter and Ron and Tom and other people from the association, and back in 2019, we were planning the 80th anniversary. And then a global thing happened around the world, a thing called COVID-19. And we thought, yeah, about 3 months, that should be okay. It'll smooth over. Well, here we are 2 years later, Peter and Ron, Tom. So we welcome you today. I'm very amazed about the guests today. So I think the 85th anniversary, we'll have it upstairs. Hopefully we have 300 people. But enjoy your afternoon. I'm so honoured to be working with the association, and yeah, enjoy yourselves and take memories, because today's memories will be happening tomorrow. So enjoy your afternoon, and like I say, download the experience, because in 20 or 18 years' time will be the centenary anniversary. So we invite you all back here again. Enjoy. Sorry. And Bernie, if you can hear me, congratulations. It's an amazing story. I can only imagine the emotion when you arrive to Australia. But looking around you, there's people here that love you, love your story, and God bless you and your family. Thank you.
So I'm very happy to call upon Ed Lippmann to come forward. Ed is the son of Henry Lippmann, as I said before, Foundation President of the Dunera Association.
Thanks very much, Ron. And you too, Peter. If it wasn't for you two guys, this wouldn't be happening. And I can remember being in Melbourne a couple of years ago when we were planning for the 80th anniversary, which because of COVID didn't happen. But it's happening today, and thanks very much for your commitment. My father, Henry Lippmann, was one of 2,200 prisoners of war who left Europe and arrived here 82 years ago. Towards the end of his life, with the support of his wife, Julie, my mother, he reconnected the cohort that he left behind, and he started a newsletter. He organised annual reunions, first in the house in Rose Bay, which overlooked the harbour that the Dunera ship sailed through, and you can learn about that from his memoirs. And later on in the Maritime Museum, then the Jewish Museum, and finally here at Jones Bay Wharf. Thanks to you, Peter, this and your generosity through Dalton House, this space. Paul. We only just met about half an hour ago, but I know all about you. And this space will be an enduring legacy to the citizens of Sydney for many years to come. My mother, Julie, couldn't make it here today, nor could my brother and his family, but I'm here, and my two sons, Ryu and Mitch, are here, and these two guys are Dunera thoroughbreds. Now, I'll have to tell you what that means, because a Dunera thoroughbred means that two of their grandfathers, Henry Lippmann and also Henry Boehm, were their grandparents. And so they represent the second generation of Dunera descendants, and I hope that one day the baton will be handed over to you two guys. My father would undoubtedly be very happy to know that these commemorations are still ongoing, so I just want to thank everyone for organising the event and for being here today. I hope you have a nice afternoon.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ed. Now, the program is changing slightly. We were careful not to advertise the program so that you don't know that. In order to give the kitchen time to find the main course, we will proceed with the unveiling of the model of the HMT Dunera. And I will call on, will I? Tom Wolf, who was the builder. Tom, builder's the right word?
Builder is the right word. Thank you.
You want this one or that one?
I prefer that one, I think.
No, it doesn't.
They're
That's
both
it.
good. They're both good.
My voice was
Hello?
carried. Okay, thank you.
I'll hold it for you, Bill.
That's all right. Before I launch into my formal speech, I've got to mention that I actually arrived at this wharf on the 6th of June 1957. So there's another link. Good afternoon, honoured guests, our host Paul, and the descendants and friends of the Dunera boys. Today we gather, as we do every year subject to a pandemic, to honour the memories of the Dunera boys, those 2,000-odd strangers who were thrown together by fate. Their only initial bond was their transport to a strange land on HMT Dunera. I won't regale you with the Dunera story, but I wish to honour it. I have a special interest in HMT Dunera, as my late father-in-law was transported in her from Britain, arriving in Sydney on the 6th of September as an enemy alien. She was a very special purpose troop ship completed by Barclay Curle of Glasgow in 1937. She was a sister ship of the Dunera, which had been completed the year before. Ettrick and the Devonshire were completed after her. The ship belonged to the British India Steam Navigation Company and was fitted out to be used by its owners to carry large numbers of troops. But she was also suitable for use as a high-class passenger liner and to carry cargo. I don't think the people that were on board the Dunera that you are aware of would have thought of her as a high-class passenger ship. As she was owned by BI but was chartered as a troop ship, she was given the descriptive title HMT. The HM has nothing to do with the usual British designation for His or Her Majesty's ship. It meant hired military transport. The standard livery of British troop ships in 1937 was a white hull with a broad blue stripe and a buff funnel. And there are many photographs of the Dunera in this livery. But for some reason, possibly to avoid the ship being identified in wartime on open waters as a troop ship, by 1940 the livery was black and white hull, white superstructure, buff funnel, and the photographs taken during World War II established this to be the fact. The Dunera carried the New Zealanders to Egypt in January 1940. This is probably the time when her livery was changed. And then the Australians, troops from Melbourne in April 1940. These are the very troops that fought in the Desert War against Rommel. They were the Rats of Tobruk and fought under Montgomery at Alamein. The next deployment of Dunera lent her name to one of the more notorious events in British Maritime Museum. After the fall of France, men of Italian, German and Austrian origin in Britain were rounded up as a precaution. The intention had been to segregate those who might pose a risk to security from those who were neutral and who had fled to Britain to escape Nazism. But in a wave of xenophobia, such distinctions became lost as, an example, Churchill's bag 'em all directive. And they were all suspected of being German agents, potentially helping to plan the invasion of Britain, and a decision was made to deport them in various ships to Canada and Australia. On 10th of July 1940, 2,542 detainees, all classified as enemy aliens, were embarked onto Dunera at Liverpool. They included 200 Italian and 251 German prisoners of war, as well as several dozen Nazi sympathisers, along with 2,036 anti-Nazis, most of them being Jewish, but we honour those of all faiths, religions and beliefs, for the bond between these men did not distinguish those barriers, and they together became the Dunera Boys. HMT's next notable services were the Madagascar operations in September 42, the Sicily landing in July 43, and in September 1944, she carried the headquarters staff for the US 7th Army for the invasion of southern France. Now, most of these facts are probably brand new to you. It took me a lot of research to find these out. After the Japanese surrender in 1945, Dunera transported occupation forces to Japan. By this time, her livery was dull grey. 50-51, Dunera was refitted to improve her to post-war troopship specifications, and the standard livery was reintroduced in time for her to carry troops home from the Korean conflict. And shortly after that, she was again a troop carrier for the British troops who were in Cyprus and Britain at the time of Suez, and for some time after that. In fact, you might find quite a few members of NAJAX that I have met here in Sydney who were British soldiers who were on Cyprus and transported in Dunera in the 1950s. The Ministry of Defence terminated Dunera's trooping charter in 1960. She was refitted as a school ship with classrooms on board, and in 1967 her active life was finished and she was sold and scrapped. Now I turn to the model. I decided to make the model at a scale of 1 in 350, which is not a large scale, in spite of what the Sydney Morning Herald seemed to have written about it. You'll find when you look at it, the ship is about 18 inches in the old language. And I wanted to make the model as she was when she arrived here on the 6th of September 1940. And that's when all the internees were taken off board. I was fortunate that both the Dunera and all her sister ships, the Delwara, Ettrick and Devonshire, are well documented in the shipbuilding and shipping records for their time of completion, which is 1936 to 1939, and detailed plans were readily available. I must acknowledge the research, energy, enthusiasm and effort put into this project by my friend Michael Bennett, who assisted in the research at the Vaughan Evans Library of the Australian National Maritime Museum, just down the road. I'm truly grateful to Michael for making this project something other than a pipe dream. I also thank the staff of the Vaughan Evans Library, without whose incredible and valuable assistance the model would not be on exhibit today. One of the first decisions I had to make was whether to build the model as a waterline model, just above the water, or to make it as a full hull. Because I had the plans available, it became a full hull model. I started making the jig for it back in 2013. It took a lot of years to finish. I used the bread and butter method, which simply means I laid one deck on top of the other, much like they do with ordinary ships. This is a strange building method for me because I usually do plank on frame, which is I build a frame and I just plank the outsides, so the inside's hollow. This one is solid. Whilst the hull is of relatively simple shape, there are many recessed enclosed well decks which need to be incorporated in the hull, and other unusual features that are common to passenger ships were quite strange to me. I normally build period ships, you know, galleons and that kind of thing with guns all over the place. And I had to relearn all my skills, basically, when I built this model. Those of you who were at the 2019 reunion, which is the last one that we had, actually probably saw the model in its part-built state. At that stage, I hadn't worked out how I was going to put the lifeboats on. I had to really relearn that one as well. Anyway, I had an adventure with COVID, intensive care ward and respirator in April 2020, and I finished the model after I came out of hospital. Just in time for the 2020 gathering, which unfortunately, we all know what happened to that one, and the 81st yet again. But I hope the model will please you all. In all this, I haven't made comment about the support I was given throughout by my wife Sandy, who's the daughter of Alfred Felix Katz, and Eric Strauss, both Dunera boys. Sandy is here today to honour her father. Alongside her is her brother Alan Katz, who's travelled from the Gold Coast, and her oldest son David, who is obviously a Dunera descendant. Alfred, or Fred as he preferred to be called, is actually the grandfather of 5 and a great-grandfather of 3, with many more to come, we hope. I know that if this is being broadcast or taped, the family in Melbourne is going to see this, and I wish to say hello to Diane Matatio, who's the daughter of Eric Strauss, and all her family. All that now remains for me to do is to read the dedications on the plaques at the base of the model, which you will see when it's opened. On the bow it says Hired Military Transport, HMT Dunera. On the stern, launched 1937, built by Barclay, Curl & Co. Limited, Glasgow, for the British India Navigation Company. On the port side, this model is at the scale of 1 in 350, built by Tom Wolfe, Sydney, in loving memory of Alfred Fred Felix Katz, 1923-1978, and Eric Strauss, 1913-1990, and honouring the Dunera boys. On the starboard side, this model was presented to the Dunera Association in 2020, which is when it should have been, by Sandra Wolfe, née Katz, to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the arrival of HMT Dunera at Pyrmont on 6 September 1940. I'm honoured that my model will be exhibited at the Tribute Museum, and I thank Paul for honouring the Dunera boys at this with this exhibition. I wish to thank all those whose guidance and encouragement enabled me to complete the model, and I wish the Dunera Association continued success in honouring the memory of the Dunera boys. Beautiful. Now, before you do Sandy and Alan, would you just come up here? I know you're not expecting this because this not you read my speech and this was not in it. Alan? Where's Alan? Oh, he's already there. Good. Alan, yeah. Can you guys stand there and actually do the unveiling, if you wouldn't mind? Okay. Now, we're not going to crack a bottle of champagne over the bow. To unveil it, just lift the curtain. And I don't want to steal Paul's thunder. I believe that this exhibit has now been, by the association, has been loaned to the Tribute Museum for exhibition here, and it has actually got a little nook that I believe it is permanently in. It has other Dunera memorabilia there, and Paul will sometime explain to you how and when the museum will be open for you to all see the exhibits. But this will be on exhibit now for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Before I get to the next part of the program, just to explain that probably have noticed that those commemorative bags we've handed out show the 80th anniversary. Of course, they were manufactured for 2 years ago, but it's something that hopefully it'll be a good keepsake for you. Also, that Tom wanted me to mention that, and it's quite true, that he has donated this model of the HMT Dunera to the Dunera Association, so that's fantastic.